and then we'll bring you on and just, say, hey, tell us your story. You were born and then what happened, or whatever you want to tell us. And then kind of tell us how it led to the book. And then we'll go from there and talk about the book. And at the end, we'll ask if you have anything you want to point them to.
I was thinking Hook Point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about that too, because Linda, he has a new ebook. It's ebook, right? That's coming out.
It's everything. It's ebook, it's physical, it's audio. So
awesome. Great deal. Good
okay.
deal.
Perfect. Right. Yeah, I definitely have a couple questions around that too, so we can do that.
We might learn a little something. We're accidentally doing some good. We don't even know what the heck we're doing.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, you're ready if you are.
Okay, awesome. Yep. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, what's new with you?
Oh my gosh, I can't think about what's new with me because I'm just so excited about our guest today.
Well, hey, me too. I did want to
waiting.
I did want to open up and tell you, you're the only other person in the world I know that can understand this, but have you ever got so freaking much on your plate that you're just disgusted with yourself?
Yes.
They're downstairs redoing my whole closet while I'm trying to go out of town to buy properties in Branson. I just feel like sometimes I think, what am I thinking?
Yeah, those are the days that I always say, I don't want a big life. I want a really small, teeny, tiny life. Whoever said a big life is fun is lied to me.
Yeah, changed my mind. Well, I'm super excited too, because this is kind of an opportunity for us to escape what we got going on and listen to somebody who's really got our attention lately. Brendan's been showing up everywhere we are lately. So I'm excited. Why don't you introduce him and let's get started.
Me too. Absolutely. So today we have Brendan Kane, author of 1 Million Followers, and his new book, Hook Point, on. So Brendan, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to connect with the both of you and everybody listening.
Yeah, we've been pumped. Linda's right. You've kind of been everywhere. Well, really for a while. And then have moved into, I feel like, our real estate world a lot lately too. So do you want to kind of start with maybe telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my background is I got into this whole digital and social space almost by accident. It wasn't really my initial purpose. I wanted to be a film producer, so I went to film school, and I quickly realized as soon as I got there, they don't teach you anything about business there. So I figured I should probably learn about business if I want to understand what it's like to produce movies and all the elements that go into that. So the most cost-efficient way at the time, and it still holds true today, is starting internet companies. So I started a few internet companies while I was going to college, really just to learn and experiment. It wasn't really about getting rich or anything like that. It was just diving in and see what it actually takes to get something up and running and manage it. And then when I moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in film back in 2005, it's when the entertainment industry started to reawaken to digital after the dot-com bust. And like everybody else, I started off at the ground. I was making copies, making coffee, and I knew I needed to find a unique angle, a unique hook point to stand out. And I just noticed that there was tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people moving to LA every year to be a film producer, and just saw that there was a lot of high profile people walking around the office, asking questions about, well, should we be looking at digital or social media, or how can we leverage this to really effectively promote our films? It's kind of a fascinating thing is you'll sense when a movie's done, there's this anxiety in the office or in the studio that happens because they just invested all this money. And then within a matter of months, they have to make sure that tens of millions of people are aware of this movie to have any chance of not just generating profit, but in some cases, just even recouping that investment. So I basically leveraged that knowledge I created in forming those internet companies, get my foot in the door and forge those connections, and quickly rose to founding a digital division for one studio that I worked with, and then allowed me to work directly with actors, directors, and producers online. And then from there, I just realized that I was not cut out for the corporate culture. I was more of an entrepreneurial mindset and spirit. And most people think, well, the film industry is this sexy, creative thing, but it's just another corporation. So I left and I started building my own technology platforms and licensing them back to big media companies. So that's where I built platforms in partnership with like MTV and Viacom and Comedy Central and Vice Magazine and Paramount. to name a few. And Paramount was a really great partnership where they opened up the doors to work with people like a Taylor Swift and other notable celebrities and musicians and athletes. And then from there, I just kept on that road on the digital side of things, and just kept diving deeper and deeper to all elements of it: e-commerce, media buying, also diving very deep into the psychology of how these platforms work, how they drive subconscious triggers within people's minds, and also study in depth communication frameworks and how do people communicate in different ways, all to really help people scale their brand, scale their business, scale their revenue, leveraging basically everything that I've studied over the past 15 years.
So, Brendan, do you help them like get the certain amount of followers, and then you just turn it over to them, or what does that look like for you to take them from start to finish if you're working with a company or a celebrity?
Each brand or each client that I work with is different. Is really one of my core strengths in the way that my company helps people is really diving in and understanding what their goals are, what their challenges are, and crafting a solution specific to them. I am so against any, really standardized practices or standardized strategies for people. It's even if you take a look at my books, I provide perspectives from experts all around the world, not just mine. And sometimes those perspectives and strategies contradict each other because I firmly believe there's not one way to be successful. And you need to find the right way and the right path for you and your goals. Now, the work that I do today, almost 99% of the time, it starts with what is the hook point? Like, what is the differentiator? How are we going to bring people in? Because without that, I could give you 1 million followers tomorrow, and it doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to capture and maintain attention because of the algorithms. Now, people oftentimes will get upset about algorithms or not understand what they're there to do. People will say, oh, the algorithms are just there to get me to pay for advertising. That's not the case. The reality of the situation is there's over 60 billion messages sent out on digital platforms each day. And a Forbes article recently released that the average person is exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads a day,
Wow.
which means that the average person is ignoring 4,000 to 10,000 ads a day. So the algorithms really have one job and one job only, is to keep people on these platforms longer. That's how they make their money. Now, if we open up Instagram right now, there's probably 1,000 pieces of content that the algorithm can see to us based on the people that we follow, the content that we've engaged with. So they have a very tough job to say, okay, out of those 1,000 pieces of content, what are the top 10 that I'm going to prioritize? And those top 10 are going to be determined based upon what's going to keep people on the platform longer. So that's where really when people talk about followers as like the starting point, I'm like, listen, I can teach you, I could get you followers all day long. Like, we have systems to do it. Our team has amassed over 100 million followers on all the projects that we've worked on, but that's not the real thing that you need to focus on. Like, the real commodity, the most valuable commodity in today's world is the ability to capture that attention, to get people to stop in their feeds, even stop on the street, to pay attention to what you have to say, because without it, you'll never get to how you can be of assistance to them, how you can be of value, or why you're truly unique, and people should engage you in your services.
Mm-hmm. I wrote down from your book that 60 billion message. I mean, that's a crazy number. And, I actually, one of the questions I had, and I'd love your thoughts on, is I had always heard, and I followed people like you and Jenna Kutcher and Brendan Burchard and people forever. And honestly, one of the things that I used to always kind of, it would trip me up are people who have all these followers, but then they would post something and they have no engagement. They wouldn't have any comments or very many likes. And so one of the things I've been trying to kind of understand through reading your book and others is, would you rather have less followers in the beginning, but a lot of comments and a lot more engagement than just going after trying to reach for like the 1 million followers mark or whatever that looks like? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, I think the more pertinent question is, how are you leveraging the followers that you have? How are you leveraging the engagement that you have? That's the most important thing, because I know certain influencers that have millions of followers that make very little money. You know, maybe they're getting by, or they have a comfortable living. And then there's some people that have like 10 or 20,000 followers that just kill it, like, and make a fortune. I think that it depends on how you're going to leverage it. For me, for example, generating 1 million followers in 30 days, it was a much larger strategic play. I wasn't generating 1 million followers to go sell 1 million t-shirts to people. I was generating 1 million followers because I spoke to a literary agent and said, if I do this, will you sign me as a client and get me a publishing deal?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes. So I took that, created a book, used that book as a hook point to get on stages, to speak around the world, get invited to big corporations like IKEA, speaking to their great creative global team, getting on television, get podcast interviews, press, all of that. So for me, it was a longer term strategy play of using this audience, an experiment that I did on myself for more strategic opportunities in business development for my brand and for my company. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's the best play for everybody, but some people will just be like, I want to, generate a big audience so I can sell them t-shirts, or I can sell them services, or whatever it may be. There's different ways of going about it. And the first place I start with my clients is, because a lot of people will come to me and be like, I want followers. I saw your book, 1 million followers, and I can tell when people have read it and when people haven't read it. And they're like, I want you to help me grow my audience. I want you to help me grow followers. And my first question is, why? Like, what are you going to do with those followers? What does that look like? And if somebody comes to me and says, well, I want 1 million followers, or I want 100,000 followers so I can make more money right away, they say, like, let's take a step back. Let's create a marketing campaign or a marketing funnel, or some way that you can start driving revenue for the business, generate that profit, and then you can reinvest it into that follower growth and that longer term play. Versus, I have a client right now that has been extremely successful, one of the top copywriters in the world, sold over $1 billion worth of product, and he's got all the money that he needs, but now he wants to give back. He wants to get into thought leadership. He wants to share his knowledge with people. So with him, it is follower growth. It is content strategy. We've been very successful with it. Took him from 0 followers to like 900,000 followers in a few months. But for him, he's not like looking at, how do I turn this into a business? Like, he's done that. So each path for each person's different. And that's where kind of I start the conversation with people.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we've written a couple of books, and the books are not going to make you rich. You have to figure out, what are those books going to lead people to? What's your end game that you're after, right? Because I think people can get so caught up in followers and likes and all that stuff, but what is the end game you're after? Where are you trying to lead these people to? And what do you want the end result to be? I've done several programs back when, all the digital world started. I was in Genius Network for quite a few years. I do strategic coach, and there's a ton of online people there. And it seems like to me, the people in the online world, they sell to the people who want to be in the online world, right? It looked like everybody, and the other thing that was hard to figure out is who was making money and who wasn't, right? There's all these talks about all these figures, but there's no way. Like in real estate, we go, okay, that's what you're grossing, but what are you netting? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? There didn't seem to be a way that you could quantify actually how much from what people were bringing in to what they actually netted was one thing. 2, I didn't feel like there was a ton of freedom. We're always preaching leverage and passive income and trying to get freedom. A lot of it didn't look like people were really free. It looked like now they were tied to a new job, and that job was constantly keeping the followers and all that stuff. And then it seemed like everybody sells to the person who is trying to teach the people. It didn't look like there was a lot of consumer. Is that true or not true? Or is that just the way it looked? Like everybody who made a lot of money was people like Jeff Walker, people who were actually teaching the people, and like what you're doing, how to do it. Not necessarily from there to consumer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, each business is a little bit different. I would say, especially the space that you're talking about. I mean, there's so many people in it. It's hard to distinguish who's really netting and who's not. I do want to say, two things to what you said. One, you had pointed out that those people just sell to the people that are looking for that. And I think that the reason that they do that is their hooks are designed for those people and not designed for the wider audience.
Right.
And that's essentially what I did with my first book and also the second book is, and with all of our clients, when we're developing hook points to bring people into the conversation, we're looking at how does it play to a much wider general audience. And within that, you can find your core consumers. So just to give you an example is my first book, 1 million followers. We've sold a lot of books because we built a marketing engine around it. And I would say 98 to 99% of the people that buy the books are not going to be our core clients at the end of the day because it's expensive to work with us. But A, that doesn't mean that I don't want to share that information with people. I do. And B, that doesn't mean I'm not going to reach the people that I want. Because how did we get here? You know, Gary Keller found my book and now we're all connected. And it's not like I targeted Gary Keller with it, or I didn't even know that he knew about the book. My job and my plan was how can I make a hook that's as general and wide as possible? And within that, I will reach a lot of people, help a lot of people, even if they can't afford to work with me. And then within that amplification, I will find those core clients that I can work with on a deeper level. And I think that that's oftentimes overlooked, especially in, you know, and I'm not going to say that there's not substance to this strategy, but the primary strategy that everybody says is identify your specific audience and only design content and target for that specific audience. Now, can that work? Yes. But I think you miss out on a greater opportunity. You know, you miss out on a greater opportunity to hit other audiences. And I just give you an example with my book. I'll give you another example. As I was working with a company called Chatbooks. They're the #1 online photo printer in the world. Got 1 million. They had 1 million subscribers when I worked with them last, but I'm sure it's well over that at this point. But they came to me with a Mother's Day campaign, amazing creative. My friend was a creative director on the shoot. And they're like, well, we want to target mothers 45 plus with this content. And it's really great videos. It's like young kids, like 8 to 13, talking about how their moms are superheroes. So I said, okay, but let me test. Let me open it up and let me test to see what happens when I test all audiences. And the interesting thing is that it was resonating with 18 to 25-year-old females. And when I dug into the data deeper, what was happening is they were tagging and sharing it with their mothers. So what happened is we were hitting our core demo in a far more powerful way, and we were introducing our product to a new service. And the same goes with the 1 million followers hook, is I've sold books to every type of industry, musicians, entertainment, real estate agents, all these things. And within that, it bubbles up to the influencers. It bubbles up to the higher tier clients. So I feel like that's a little bit lost in marketing. And I'm not saying it works every time, but it's at least something to test. I also want to comment on, I'm not here saying that followers are not valuable or engagement's not valuable. I mean, I live and still breathe in the entertainment industry, and it's immensely valuable. And it can be used for many different purposes. I'm just saying for every person, it may not be the best place to start based on what the overall strategy for the business and brand is.
Gotcha. So thinking about real estate agents, what do you think is the best use for a realtor to take this information that you're sharing and use it? Because, you know, it is harder. I think when people say, you know, find your Dana, here we go again, niche, and you try to narrow it down, it kind of gets a little scary, right? Because you're like, well, I don't want to just narrow it down to one specific group. So with thinking about the real estate industry, and obviously somebody from the real estate industry brought you in, that's how we discovered you at one of our masterminds. What do you think is the most valuable tools or ideas here for real estate agents to use?
Well, the biggest thing is, what's your hook point? What's the hook point of yourself? What's the hook point of your company? What's the hook point of your property? Because it's an oversaturated market, and it's sometimes very difficult to stand out, to win that business, either from other realtors, or how do you make sure that you maximize the value of your property, get the selling price you're asking for, sell it in the time frame that you're going after. Is like, how are you bringing people in? How are you differentiating yourself from everybody else? That's first and foremost. Number two is, are you testing and learning? It's like I see so many companies, this isn't just real estate, but I do see it in real estate as well, is you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. You're not learning, you're not changing things, you're not setting new hypotheses, you're not seeing if there's better ways of doing things. And like anything, how do you get better? How can you grow if you're not constantly testing and learning new ways to really drive the key KPIs of your business?
Mhm.
Makes
Yep.
sense.
I really like how you talk a lot about, and we want people to go read your book, so we don't want to just, give it all away. However, when you talk about, like, you have to gain an authentic following, and then you have to create the content. Like, I think when you chunk it down and break it into different pieces, it's like you have to start with being authentic and figuring out what you want to do and your why, like you said, and then you have to create the content. And I think sometimes that's where people get stuck is the creating the content part. What advice would you give around that? And who should people do it themselves? Should they hire someone? I think our audience would love to hear that, because like
Right.
Linda and I talk about this all the time. Some people are like, I love to post and do that stuff, and other people can't think of what to post if they thought about it for 3 days. It's like they get totally paralyzed around Linda, they get paralyzed around creating the content. So what would you say about that, Brendan?
Well, first and foremost, it's quality over quantity. There's so much misinformation in the market that you have to post every day or multiple times a day, and that ends up being a disaster. It becomes a disaster because you start forcing yourself to create content just for the sake of creating content, not content that's going to drive value. And the minute that you start doing that, you start cutting corners, and then you put out content that's not really engaging, not playing to what the algorithms are looking for, and that's when you get suppressed reach, and that's where you get lower engagement. In terms of, do you hire to produce content or you produce it yourself? It depends on the business. Again, like we've got to start the conversation with, what do we envision social media doing for our business, and assign clear KPIs. Is like, I want social media, either paid or organic, to generate X number of leads a month or X number of revenue, and set the benchmark that for yourself or for an agency or a partner. And listen, as you get in, you may be way off base, but you've got to set a benchmark of what you expect it to do and see if it matches up to that. Because I don't know what it is about social media, but people feel like if I just open up a social media account and I start posting, magic's going to happen, and all of a sudden everything is going to fall into place. It doesn't work that way. Are there examples of it? Sure. But like any other type of marketing that you would do, any other type of growth initiative you would do for your business, you're going to ask yourself, where is my return on investment coming in from? Is the return on investment happening? And if it's not, well, what tweaks can we make to get there? What is the expectation? Do we think that social media is going to drive $5,000 a month in revenue for our business, or $500,000 a month in revenue? And then with that, then you can make the determination, do I hire people internally? Do I hire an agency? How much do I spend on advertising? How much do I spend on paying people? Because I get that question all the time, is, this agency is telling me they want to charge me $2,500 a month to manage their social accounts, or $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it is. Should I pay it? And I was like, I need to understand the fundamentals of your business. Like, what does that mean? Because for some businesses, $10,000 a month, yeah, like, pay it, because the return on investment is probably going to be $500,000. For other people, maybe not even spending $2,500 a month, because you're not even going to get that return on investment back. So that's really kind of where I start in looking to answer those questions.
Well, they have to be able to have a way to measure what their return
Yeah.
is. Otherwise, they're just throwing money out there, and you're not sure whether it's worth paying or not.
And the great thing is you can measure everything now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and if somebody's telling you you can't measure it, they're full of it. You can measure everything through digital.
Yeah. I thought this was really interesting last night. I, for some reason, couldn't sleep. And so I was like, let me just flip and see what's on Netflix. And so I stumbled upon which I had never watched this, but the David Letterman, it's like My Guest Needs No Introduction or something that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so he had Kim Kardashian on, and he was talking about her social media. And so he said, how often do you post? Because he said, clearly your sister, Kylie, built a $1 billion business off of basically selling makeup online. And he said, so Kim, how often do you post? And she said, well, at least every day. And he said, likely more than once a day. And she said, yeah. And he said, so is that a full-time job for you? And she said, honestly, yeah, it is. And
Yep.
I think that's why people get overwhelmed, though, because it can be. I mean, if when you get to what you say, Brendan, as the engaging part, and then the getting people to start sharing your content and all of those things. So I think that's why I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, do you pay somebody to do your social media? I'm like, no, I just do it myself because I have a passion around it and I like doing it. And I don't post every day because I also have a lot of other jobs, and so it can be a lot when you're in there and where you're trying to continue to build upon the engagement that you already have.
Well, the big differentiator that people should understand as well is there's paid versus organic. You do not have to live in the organic realm, or you don't have to feed that engine. Like, you can do this off of all paid, which in some ways is more manageable. You still have to put in the work, but like for myself, I think we posted one piece of content in the past 6 months organically because I'm so hyper focused on additional experiments and other aspects of the business right now that I just don't want to allocate the resources and time to it. And that's just a strategic business decision that I've made. And I'm not really overly concerned about that because we're focusing on how we can leverage all of our organic tactics and apply it to direct response advertising to drive massive brand growth and brand reach. So if you are getting overwhelmed by the organic side, or you don't want to be in front of the camera or any of those things, then maybe you should just focus on paid advertising campaigns that can still drive the business forward. And again, you just measure that ROI off the back end of it.
I love that.
When you talk about the direct response, are you talking about somebody else doing that, or do you do it in-house yourself? That's kind of a complicated process using direct response. I mean, it's very effective. It's been around forever. I know there's tons of books and stuff on it. Is that something that you guys do learn and do in yourself, or do you hire that out?
We do both. So I'm a huge believer in cutting down your learning curve by hiring and partnering with the smartest people you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know media buying really well. I built big businesses, but I will still hire other media buyers that have a core expertise in direct response to see if they can take us to the next level, or there's something that I can learn from them.
Absolutely.
And that's a big mistake that people make, is they get good at something and then they get complacent.
Yeah.
Versus, like, listen, you cannot be the best in the world at everything. It's impossible. You can be good at something, but that doesn't mean that there's not somebody out there better than you. And if there is somebody out there better than you, why wouldn't you try and partner with them or engage with them to take your business to the next level? With that said, is always learn as much as you can. Because, like, if you're like, for example, if you know nothing about paid advertising, and then all of a sudden you go hire an agency to do paid advertising for you, you have no idea if they're telling you what they're telling you is the truth, or whether they're doing the best job possible, or any of that stuff. So I always recommend to learn as much as possible. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the person pulling the levers, but at least have a base understanding so that you can be dangerous enough to ask the right questions to determine, is this person the right fit, or do I want to continue going in this direction with this partner or this agency or this contractor or this employee?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. What do you think it is that sets, if someone were to say, well, Brendan, this comes natural for you, or what do you think it is that sets people apart, like the you and the Jay Shettys and
It definitely does not come natural to me. I mean, like anything, I've had to work really hard at it, and I still work really hard at it. And the reason that we're successful is not because we're the smartest, is because we will keep testing until we find the answers.
Yeah.
And you'll see that as a reoccurring theme in my books, is the people that I interview, some of which are way more successful than I've been, is they have that same mindset. And it's like anything in life. This isn't just for social media. It's to be successful in anything. You have to have a proper mindset. Is like, I recently released a new edition of my 1 million followers book, and I rewrote the whole beginning to focus on the mindset first, because the people that have had success with my strategies and everything that we express are the people that have the proper mindset and are not going to give up and continuously testing and keep working at it. The people that try one thing and give up, they're obviously not going to be successful in any discipline or aspect of life. And even Jay Shetty, you think about Jay Shetty, for example, when he was working for Huffington Post, I think he spent like 2 or 3 years consuming every piece of video content that he could come up with. Like Prince EA, who wrote the foreword for my book, he spent, I think, a few years producing content. He wanted to be a rapper, and he generated, I think, 10 million views over a few years. And then he just said, like, this isn't working. I need to reinvent myself. And he wanted to just be of service and of value of the world. And once he made that mind shift, he went to like 2 billion views in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a reoccurring theme. But like and it's also how we work with our clients. Is what we tell our clients is we'll give you the roadmap, we'll give you the strategy, but you have to implement it and execute on it. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. We can reassess, we can readjust. Oftentimes it's not the strategy that is failing, it's the way that it's being executed. And the smallest tweaks in the world can make all the difference. Like I remember working with Katie Couric, and that's like, I did 220 interviews with her and tested 75,000 variations of hooks against those interviews. And we would just constantly test and iterate. And that was the biggest thing I told her first starting. I was like, Katie, if we're going to do this, we cannot fall in love with any specific interview. We will, if it fails, that's fine. We'll learn from it. It's not, I don't see it as a failure. I just see it as a learning lesson. And we'll take those learnings and apply it to the next interview and apply it to the next interview. And we had tremendous success using that mindset and philosophy. Generated over 1 billion global platform views across those interviews. So that, I would say that's really when you say it comes naturally, it definitely does not come naturally to me. And most of the people in my books and the people I surround myself in are those instances where people really hit it out of the park right away? Yes. But the people that sustain are the people that have that mindset. There's so many influencers and so many social content creators that hit it big in the beginning because it was a lot easier, or they'll hit it big now and then they'll completely fall off because they're not constantly testing and innovating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
That was the answer I was hoping you were going to say, because I feel like that's what people need to hear. And I think a lot of times, I don't know, I know for me, I continue to engage and follow the people who are real and authentic, and who maybe it necessarily doesn't come natural to, yet they shared the failures and the successes and all of the journey in between. And also, I will say I was really impressed because I messaged you and you messaged me back. I mean, whether it was you or somebody else, I got a message.
It was me.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't sometimes find that. And I think when you say that there are people who maybe they come out strong and then they drop off, well, there's something to be said for being authentic and for also really wanting to engage and responding and all of those things. And I don't know, as a follower, that goes a long way for me.
Yeah, I learned that from Taylor Swift. I mean, she was the master of doing that.
Yep.
And it's kind of fascinating too, is sometimes I'll get a lot of flack for my book because I don't post a lot organically right now. And I can just tell, again, they don't understand the purpose of my book and my message. Generating 1 million followers in 30 days is an experiment. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm not trying to be famous or anything like that. And the core DNA of who I am and how I provide value is constantly learning and constantly experimenting. And when I get into it, I have to be hyper focused. And that's where it's like, people don't understand, well, why aren't you posting organically right now? It's because I'm focused on the next experiment so that I can help people even more doing it. And it's not to say that we're not continuously helping our clients grow as well. That's a huge job in and of itself. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up, like, the authenticity is just, being true to what the DNA of your brand is. And even if people don't understand it, don't stray away from it. Don't let people change who you are, because you're going to get negativity. You're going to get backlash no matter what you do. There's no way you can ever make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. And if you are, you're probably not reaching scale. It's like, I remember when my agent, my literary agent is one of the top literary agents in the world. He's represented over $5 billion worth of books. And I remember when my first book launched, we got some negative reviews on Amazon and I was freaking out. And he's just like, listen, if you're getting 100% positive, you're not doing something right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that enough people haven't read it or found out about it.
Yeah, you haven't reached scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great point.
And I think that's a great point for real estate agents too, is because, you know, houses are houses or houses or houses, but you have a unique character, you have certain validity, and those are the kind of things to me that are going to attract people to you. You know, to me, the houses are just the houses, but if you can bring the ones that I've noticed that do well on social media with their real estate business, and they build it through social media, they engage people, and they engage people in conversations that they love having. So it's not work to them to get on and, you know, like what Dana and I do here, this is not work. I mean, we love to talk, we could talk to each other all day long, and our audience likes to hear what we have to say because we talk about what they want to hear, and they're interested in what we're interested in. But we don't get on here and try to be somebody we're not, or talk about things that we don't really know anything about, because then we wouldn't be authentic, and it wouldn't, first of all, it just wouldn't be fun. And we don't want to do it unless it's fun, right?
Sounds
I think
good either.
I think the real estate world, they really have to, I think you have to bring people into your world, and they want to be a part of whatever it is you're a part of, not just you have a house to sell. I mean, houses are selling like hotcakes right now, right? But what can they do to engage their audience more and to find out what that audience's value gaps are that they can step into and help those people?
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that you should ask yourself in creating a single piece of content or a whole content strategy is, why should anybody care?
Mm.
Most people, it's just like, if you're just focused on selling houses all the time, like, why should I care?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge missed opportunity for a realtor, is that not everybody's in the mindset of buying or selling, but if you find a way to keep them engaged through to that next deal or that next thing or to the next referral,
Mm-hmm.
it will set you apart from everybody else. Because, and that goes back to the targeting side of it, is just because I'm not interested in buying or selling a house today doesn't mean I don't know somebody that is.
Yep.
And
True.
the minute that you're only focused on that core audience, you're losing that opportunity. On top of the fact, I think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't sell or buy homes for a living, but there's more people involved in that decision than just the person cutting the check. You know, there's the spouse, there's the kids, there's the grandparents, there's all of that probably makes a meaningful impact on that decision. And I think that sometimes that's overlooked, and going too targeted with your messaging or too targeting with your ads is, again, going back to that chat books example, who knows, maybe it's the son or daughter that finds a unique house or a unique property and sends it to their parents.
Yeah, that's a great example, honestly.
So
And not
true.
because I love chat books and I have a ton of them, but it's a great example. So, okay, Brendan, we're about out of time. We want to be respectful for your time. How can, anything else that we didn't ask you that we should have, and how can people find more Brendan?
I think we've kind of covered a lot of ground today. I would just really have people focus on how you can master the art of grabbing attention. It'll help in all aspects of your business, and just be relentless in that pursuit of learning. Don't see something as not working as a failure. See it as a data point. See it as a stepping stone to the next piece of content. And if you adopt that mindset, you will beat out your competition. You will hit your goals. It may take you longer than anticipated, but it will happen. It will work. In terms of engaging, I would recommend, if people are interested in what we've talked about, is to start with the book that I just released, Hook Point: How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World. Because again, it's like 1 million followers, a lot of great information in there, but setting the base foundation for everything is really in the information that we break down in Hook Point. It teaches you how to master capturing that attention in a very noisy and oversaturated world. And they can go to book.hookpoint.com to check that out. If they want to check out 1 million followers, they can go to book.1millionfollowers.com and get that there as well.
I was actually going to ask you, Brendan, for those, almost everybody in our world now has read 1 million followers. And for those who haven't, would you recommend Hook Point first?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it sets the foundation, and it really sets you up for success, because, and we talk in Hook Point not just about online, we talk about offline and in all forms of marketing as well. But really, if you want to be good at social media, or if you want a bunch of followers, you need to understand how to capture that attention. Because again, I can give you a bunch of followers tomorrow, but if you don't know how to create the content that gets people to stop in the feed, you're going to get suppressed by the algorithms, and you're ultimately not going to get the reach that you want.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Makes sense.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Dana, any last points you'd like to add?
No, this is great. I took 3 pages of notes. So thank you, Brendan, so much for the time. I have not read Hook Point. That'll be what I'll be doing this weekend probably, because I think that it does feel like we're in an oversaturated world a little bit sometimes. So I'm anxious to get through that.
And we'll both be plugged in next week for the top masterminds you're doing with Gary and the top 100 next week. So we'll be joining you in those also. So remember, if you have if you'd like to submit a question or a challenge or an opportunity to Dana and I to help you with, be sure and submit them to us at info@everything life and real estate. And the greatest compliment you could give us is to refer this podcast to a friend. And if you haven't, please leave us a review. We'd appreciate it. And Brendan, we just want to say thank you so much, and keep writing these great books.
Thanks for having me. It was such a pleasure to connect with you and all the listeners out there.
Thanks so much. See you next time, Linda.
Bye, Dana. See you whenever we're going to see each other next. Maybe at John Maxwell next.
That's
whenever.
right.
Bye, Brendan. See you.